The year is 2023. AI has become sentient. Human cyborgs are being implemented across the football landscape, slaughtering quarterbacks and running backs alike to endangered states. The newest artificial intelligence model is the deadliest yet. The Terminator, T3100, is an apex predator. It doesn't even try to hide its inhuman nature. For though he may look like a man, it is instead a doomsday machine, comprised of nanotech that morphs men into fearsome beasts. The Will Terminator line is relentless. He will not tire. He will not stop. The ACT-3100 doesn't eat. He doesn't rest. He just keeps coming until the job is done, no matter the number of bodies he leaves on the floor. Last year, Will Anderson burst onto the college scene with 17.5 sacks and 100 tackles, all coming off the edge. This had many labeling Anderson as a generational prospect and likely to be the first overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. And why shouldn't have folks have thought that? Anderson was a 20-year-old true sophomore, kicking the ass of grown men in the SEC, the toughest conference in the land. Why shouldn't have the folks in Tuscaloosa have thought his potential limitless? It wasn't like the 2021 year came out of nowhere. Anderson also had a great freshman campaign where he notched 50 tackles and 7.5 sacks. And the tape backed up the stats. Anderson was big and athletic with long arms. He could run around you, but he also appeared stronger than his listed 245-pound playing weight. Most importantly, Anderson dominated in a way that is unique in college football. The word man-child comes to mind. College football fans wondered, how much better could Anderson be in 2022? Was 20 sacks possible? Well, while his 10 sacks are a far cry from 20, or even the 17.5 he had the prior year, he's continued to look every bit the future dominating force on Sundays. He's getting more consistent double teams this year, which is the main explanation for his slight dip in sacks. Teams are also staying committed to running away from him, which is why his tackle numbers have dipped too. There are questions with his motor, technical refinement, and bend, but there isn't a single defender in this draft with more natural ability. Will Anderson had me a little confused at first. It took me a while to recognize the immediate and devastating impact he would bring to whatever NFL team picks him. He has quickness, but it's not first step quickness, more like step 2, 3, 4 quickness. His hand usage struck me as limited, but when he does flash the stab and grab or the counter inside, his technique is flawless, and then in combination with his impressive explosiveness can make him appear nearly unstoppable. But don't take my word for it. Let's dive on into the tape and let me show you why Will Anderson is one of the best defensive players in the 2023 NFL Draft and potentially the first pick for your Seattle Seahawks. First off, Anderson is a legit 6'4", and his arms have to be around 34 inches long, which is ideal for edge rushers. Short arm stubbies just don't work in the NFL. Will gets his big frame into a low stance and fires off the ball with a force. He isn't a snap anticipator, and that first step isn't the best you'll see in this draft, but it's steps 2, 3, and 4 that are a part of what makes him so special. He gets up to full speed on these first 3 steps, and athletically challenged tackles are toast before they've even stepped out of their stance to mirror him. They're simply too slow off the snap. A cat and mouse game commences as you feel with each progressive snap the tackle trying to pop out of his stance wider and quicker to reach Will to the edge. Once Anderson has created fear in the heart of the tackle for his quickness, he counters to 3 main options. First, he has a functional bull rush that if he's catching a tackle unaware or on his heels can be very effective. It's not the most devastating move, but it does force tackles to root down more than they'd like to do so for a guy this quick. Now the real fun begins. Anderson now has the tackle jump setting to reach his quickness, while also getting him to anchor too strongly to get prepared for his bull rush power. Enter counter number 3, the stab and grab. The pass rush move begins with Anderson attacking the inside shoulder of the lineman with his inside arm, giving an initial indication of a long arm bull rush. Anderson then uses his outside offhand to swoop under the backside of the wrist of the offensive lineman's outside hand and forces the lineman's arm above his head. It makes the offensive lineman look like he's getting bullied, but it's a highly technical move that requires Anderson to first strike and sell the bull rush, but then also when he hooks underneath, he has to be precise in attacking the wrist, where the offensive lineman is weak, and not the elbow, where he's still strong. Once he's got the lineman's arm over his head, Anderson then displaces his hips around the tackle, and now he has a clear pathway to the quarterback. The lineman is essentially missing an arm to hold him back as Anderson pins him while he swings his hips around. Anderson probably does go to the move a little too much, but I think he'll eventually master it. And I don't see too many college kids even trying it, though some of the other Alabama linemen do flash the technique, so it's probably taught there, but he's got a real natural feel for it. There is one final counter that he really knows how to work. And to me, all of these foundational 4 moves of Anderson flow off one another like a jiu-jitsu expert going from one submission seamlessly to the next. And the next progression from a lineman first oversetting for fear of Anderson's quickness, then hunkering down to handle Anderson's bull rush, and finally leaning to their outside shoulder to prevent Anderson's stab and grab move. The Terminator's coup de grace is a wicked inside counter. He jabs hard with his outside foot and then jumps back across the lineman's face, letting himself through the front door like the original Terminator crashing through the police station. Chaining pass rush moves together is some advanced stuff. To have these goods on an athletic unicorn like Will Anderson makes him potentially special. Anderson also takes on the run nearly as equally well as he defends the pass. He can get a little high when setting the edge, but he will get it set. Sometimes blockers can get latched onto him, and even though he maintains his ground and doesn't get pushed back, he still gets cordoned off the play even when the ball carrier is going right past him. Still, on a consistent basis, he was making plays when he had a chance to do so. As said earlier, teams ran away from him like his side of the field had a virus. That in itself speaks to the level of respect his opponents had for him. Or fear. Double teams also don't necessarily stop him either. Interestingly, many of his double teams would be tackle-guard combos instead of the traditional tight end tackle or running back tackle double team combinations you typically see against edge players. Again, this tells you how much of a major problem Anderson was on Saturdays. Running twists and stunts is every bit as common in today's NFL as it was in yesteryear. No doubt, Anderson is going to stack a couple sacks a season as a pro off his stunting abilities alone. It accentuates his quickness and snappy lateral movement, and if the lineman's a step slow inside, whoo, Anderson's flying right past him. Stunting was also helpful in getting him free from some of those persistent double teams. An oddity that stood out on Anderson's film was the amount of times he goes unblocked. I know there are offensive plays in the run game that call for an edge defender to go unblocked in order to get an extra blocker to the other side of the field, but Anderson devastated this approach every which way but loose. Untouched, had him on top of ball carriers right after the snap. On these plays, it's almost scary how fast he gets home. He'll have NFL offensive coordinators worried to death about leaving backside run plays open. His presence alone will probably remove some of those plays from the playbook. There are some slight negatives on Anderson's tape. None of these detractions should much hinder his projection, perhaps outside of being enough for me to stop short of calling him a generational prospect as some have. First, Anderson's motor doesn't run red hot. I will say pass rushers, especially great pass rushers, will often pick their spots, and many don't have their car redlined every play. Yet, I'd be remiss not to mention, Anderson did disappear at times in games. Some of it, I wonder, is, did he get a little bit frustrated, getting doubled all the time, or plays being run away from him constantly, or the quarterback just trying to get the ball out of his hand quickly against that tough Bama defense? It's got to be a little bit frustrating. But with 50-plus tackles last year and 10 sacks, he still produced at a high level. Will Anderson also doesn't come with a wide array of moves. There will be more polished pass rushers in this draft. Again, this doesn't diminish his stock for me in the least. The Bosa brothers basically rock inside scissors, outside scissors, rip, and a bull rush move, but they're highly effective with those handful of pass rush moves because they work so well off each other. When you're that physically freakish too, it's just about reading the lineman's lean or setting him up for the right move. On any given play, they can get home if the lineman guesses wrong. When you pick at the top of the draft, you want a game changer. Limitless potential, physical superiority, naturally gifted with an instinctual feel for the game. You want a man that moves the needle and makes offenses quiver in their cleats. You want a relentless predator that just keeps coming on every play with a threat of destruction. And like a machine created in the lab by AI, Will Anderson is perfectly built to be the new construct of defensive chaos in the NFL. He will keep coming. You can't break him. Double teams won't help you. The only safe haven for NFL offenses will be to run away and hide. The Terminator has arrived.